that I'm really grateful for, every rule of Allah, if understood properly, appeals to your fitrah. This deen is a deen of fitrah. And if you understand any hukum of Allah, if you give it the time to understand it, immediately something in your heart will be like, okay, I'm at ease now. That makes sense. You don't have to do gymnastics and find some way of interpreting it that's progressive and, liberal, or we have to have a new interpretation. You have to be true and honest with the text. And you have to be true and honest with the context. And you can arrive at the conclusion that will appeal to your fitrah. So khair, when I heard this answer, immediately I just felt it. There was something in me like, like a boulder was lifted from my chest. And that same night, I had dinner with about 20 scholars, traditional scholars. And I'm not going to say what school of thought or whatever, that doesn't matter. But I know they were the kind of people, imams, that have given talks and teach that you can basically hit women generally. Like that this is not the case. The case is the Sharia sanctions that you can hit them under any. So if they're raising their voice, if they're home late, something happened, you can just hit them, and that's Sharia allows it, right? And they say these things. So I was having dinner with them, all these ulama, and then the only ignorant one is me sitting there. But you know me, I like making trouble. So I was like, this morning I had lunch with Professor Abdul Halim. We were talking about the ayah of hitting women. What did he say? Well, he said that it's actually about infidelity. Because hafilatun lil ghaib, and there's in'ikas on the other hand with takhafuna nushuzahunna, and that's the only real way to make sense of khawf and nushuz. And then the rest of it falls right in. Everything starts making sense in that process. And what's really awesome was that they all said, that makes sense. That's true. And I said, why don't you guys say it? Why was that the first time I heard it? I've heard otherwise my entire life. I've listened to lots of people talk about this. All they talk about is the miswak and the toothbrush. Nobody ever talked to me about the context where it applies. How come you guys, if you know this, why didn't you say anything? Okay. Again, I like making trouble. And what good is dinner if it's not awkward? So what do they say? They say, well, the people aren't ready. And I said, what? People aren't ready? What in the world does that mean? I didn't want to take it any further, but I knew what that meant. What happens in Muslim society, not that group. And that group, may Allah reward them, and may Allah Azza wa Jalla continue to guide all the Muslims. I don't hate on any group. We're all in this together. The ones who know and the ones who don't know. We're one ummah. We're one family, and we have one giant mess of problems. Look, the thing is, what happens is, people are around other people who think the same way. And you belong to the same, let's just say the same school of thought. And within that school of thought, you guys agree with all the same fatwas. Right? Now the problem is, if you belong to that group, then you have to agree with all of their fatwas. And if you disagree with any one of them, then you are stepping out of line, and the rest of the group will say, hey, what are you doing? And they might kick you out of their group. You don't belong with us anymore. So you will lose your title, your social status, your position, your friends, your circle. You're out of there. Because you disagreed with one of those things that they say. If you do that, then you've either become a sellout or a hypocrite or something else. And so a lot of times, people won't say anything, not because they're not convinced, but because they're too afraid of the mafia that they're already a part of. That's a reality. And I've seen that reality many times. I've had personal conversations with people who are public figures, and in private they'll tell me one thing, and in public they'll never say it. And I tell, why don't you say it? I can't, because I come from this school, and my teachers would never, and all of the other graduates, they'll all consider me a deviant and this or that. I can't say that in public, but of course I agree with you. Really? Wow. That's the reality of it. That's a very scary reality. It's a very, very scary reality. And to me, it has to be spoken about only not to demonize scholars or schools of thought. I will say one thing. The fuqaha of this ummah are incredible intellectuals. Incredible. They're incredible. And you know what makes fiqh amazing and sharia amazing? Is actually the principles. Because you don't ever arrive at a conclusion without following certain principles. Right? The principles are pretty much timeless. You can think of the principles as timeless. You know what we've done? We don't even care about the principles. We just care, think of the principles as a machine. You have to put every question through this machine. And on the other side, you get the answer. All we care about now is what? The answer. But sometimes people are giving the answer, but they didn't use the machine. They gave the answer, and they're the mechanic, they're supposed to be the one that operates the machine, but they gave an answer without using any of the principles. Then that answer is invalid, even if it came from them. That answer is not acceptable. It's not good enough. It's not strong enough. Every answer has to follow what? The principles. And that's my problem. If you have they've said it, so that's why it's true. Well, no, what principles did they use to arrive at that conclusion? A principle like the context of the ayat, a principle like the historical context, a principle like reconciling the Qur'an with the Sunnah. They cannot be in contradiction with each other. They complement. These are principles. They have to be followed. You have to be in line with them to arrive at proper conclusions. Once again, I don't claim that this is the perfect understanding of the text. But I am saying that whatever understanding that I've discussed with people, I haven't found conclusions that are rooted in principles. I haven't found that. And when scholars much more versed than myself, much more qualified than myself, are helping me arrive at this, I feel obligated to share it, even though fiqh and sharia is not my space. But I feel like this actually hurts a lot of people. Like a lot of people are abused in the name of religion, And men should watch out for not falling into dhulm, not being the zalim, not being the wrongdoer, thinking they're obeying the word of Allah. And women should not be oppressed, thinking that Allah condones oppression of them. May Allah Azza wa Jal give us loyalty and love and respect and proper understanding to His word. Barakallahu li wa lakum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you benefited. I'd like to encourage you to actually embark on a comprehensive journey into the Qur'an. I've done a video translation and explanation of the entire Qur'an. It's called Qur'an Cover to Cover. I'd like you to check it on Al-Bayyinah TV. Just do a little bit of it every day, and before you know it, you'll have gone through the entire Qur'an in translation with me. Hope you can take part. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.